Hey, what's up, Eagles fans? Welcome to another episode of Eagles Latest, and we're going to do something a little bit different here today on the podcast. We are going to do a live mock draft of the first two rounds to see what we come up with what the Eagles will do. Now, going to be some parameters here for this mock draft. We're not going to do any trades. We're just going to go straight up to see which players will be falling at number 23, and then, of course, later in the middle round of the second round. And we are on the assumption that A.J. Brown is still a Philadelphia Eagle because he is still a Philadelphia Eagle. So, without further ado, we're going to fire this mock draft up. This is on ProFootballNetwork.com. We're going to go two rounds, like I said. We're going to just do the Eagles, and we're going to see what comes up here. So looking forward to seeing the options and looking forward to talking about some of the potential avenues the Eagles could take. Obviously, Fernando Mendoza goes first. Jeremiah Love went 3 to Arizona. Caleb Downs went 5 to the Giants. That would be a huge pick in real life for the Giants. Obviously, Downs, one of the top prospects in this draft. It'll be interesting to see what the Giants do. We talked about how I think they could be pretty pesky in this upcoming season. Now, there are trades available in this mock draft. We were offered 3 trade offers. Again, we're just going to stick to the no trades just to see what players are available. The Bears had offered their 25th pick and a 4th round pick in 2027 for pick number 23. Atlanta was looking to give a boatload, pick 48, pick 79. Atlanta's 2nd and 3rd round pick in next year's draft for pick 23 and 197. I would probably consider possibly taking that trade if we were doing it in different parameters. Getting an extra 2nd and 3rd next year, pretty sweet deal in my opinion. But again, for this exercise, we're just going to stay straight at 23. And then the Saints offered pick 42, pick 73, and the Saints next year's 2nd round pick. So 2 of those 3 offers pretty solid, but we're going to stay at pick 23. And the best available player right now is Omar Cooper Jr., which is interesting because they did have a top 30 visit with Cooper Jr., and there are certainly people that think that they could go wide receiver in the first round. I'm going to stick with my belief that the Eagles will build from the trenches and they will go with an offensive lineman in the first round. Again, it's not the sexy pick, but I just think it's necessary with the uncertainty of the health and future of Landon Dickerson and Lane Johnson. The 2 of them both went out of the country to receive treatment to try and expedite their healing process. So it does seem like they need to figure out a way to find some replacements for those 2 guys. Now, some other guys that are available, Caden McDonald, the D tackle of Ohio State. Eagles don't really need a defensive tackle. Casey Concepcion, another wide receiver out of Texas A&M, is available. Akeem Mesidor, the edge from Miami, is available, and Blake Miller, the offensive tackle from Clemson. Max Iancor of Arizona State. A lot of people think he might be a fit for the Eagles. So, you're looking at some solid options here in the first round at pick number 23. The wide receivers are intriguing, but because I'm sticking with my gut, I'm going to go with Blake Miller, the offensive tackle out of Clemson. I just like how he's a bulldog. I think he would fit this Eagles team very well. 6'6", 350-pound right tackle. He might have one of the highest ceilings in the draft. His size is one of the more intriguing things about Miller as a prospect. He's a very explosive attacker off the snap. Light-footed puller is what they've got here on Pro Football Network. And I do think that he could be a really solid pick here for the Philadelphia Eagles. So I'm going to go with Blake Miller. He's 6'6", 350 pounds, as I mentioned. hand size 9 3/4 inches, arm length 34 1/4. He had a relative athletic score of 9.90. That goes up to 10, and we know how much the Eagles love drafting players with those high RAS scores. He had a 32-inch vertical jump. The offensive linemen don't really need to jump that much, but those are just some of the metrics that are available. So I am going to go with Blake Miller. I think he could be a really solid pick. I think he could be a really solid NFL player as well down the road. So Blake Miller is going to be pick number 23. Omar Cooper Jr. goes right after him to Cleveland at 24. Casey Concepcion goes to Kansas City at 29. And we've got Emmanuel McNeil-Warren at 32. He was somebody that I could potentially see the Eagles take a look at round number 1, the former teammate of Quinyon Mitchell. And so we keep on going here. The first quarterback was taken. It was, where we're here. Let's pause this real quick. Oh, well, we're up to pick 54 already for the Eagles. Rams offered 61 and 69. Again, we are not doing trades for this exercise. The Bears offered pick 57 and 89 for pick 54 and 114. I don't think that's a terrible move. You move up here in the later round. But the quarterback taken, obviously, Ty Simpson. He goes to the New York Jets at 34 as the Jets traded their 16th overall pick to Arizona, who picked up Caleb Lomu, and the Jets got picked 34-65 in Arizona's second round pick. So we are back on the clock at pick number 54. As I mentioned, I stuck with my gut about the Eagles wanting to go in the first round direction of an offensive lineman. Here in the second round, looking for a wide receiver, a tight end, or an edge, whatever might be available. And there are some options, obviously. The wide receivers, you've got Bernard from Alabama, Antonio Williams from Clemson, Ted Hurst out of Georgia State. Some people are pretty interested in Hurst. Skylar Bell out of UConn. The tight ends, I might be looking at Oscar Delp, especially the tight end from Georgia. And then you look over at the edge position. You've got Mason Thomas from Oklahoma, Joshua Josephs of Tennessee, Danny Dennis Sutton out of Penn State, Derek Moore out of Michigan. But those guys are kind of projected to be third-round picks based on their rankings here on Pro Football Sports Network. So we're going to go back and take a look at some of these guys. You have Genesis Smith, the safety out of Arizona as well. So there's some intriguing choices here. Looking around the edge, Mason Thomas of Oklahoma. You got Keontae Scott at cornerback. I don't know if they're going to go cornerback this early. You have Jalen Kilgore, a safety that we spoke about. I'm going to go back to the offense. I'm going to go tight end here, I think. I really do like Eli Stowers. It may be a reach, though, for the Vanderbilt product. I just love the history of the previous John Mackey Award winners and what it's meant in terms of the NFL success. As I've talked about, the last 5-6 tight ends who've won that award have gone on to be fantastic pros. Brock Bowers, Trey McBride, Tyler Warren the year before. Stowers just won it. So I do think Eli Stowers could be a really solid prospect. But I do think he might be a little bit of a reach. I'm not really loving some of the other guys right now. So that kind of, sways me. You got Emmanuel Pregnon from Oregon as well, another offensive guard. Do the Eagles double up at offensive line in the first 2 rounds? I don't know if they would. I don't think they would. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go with Oscar Delp, the junior tight end out of Georgia. I do think that he could be a really solid backup tight end and then basically fill the void of Dallas Goedert moving forward. Now, he's not the same caliber prospect that Brock Bowers was for the Bulldogs. He didn't have a eye-popping statistical season, I should say, but he still is a very tantalizing, athletic, upside prospect with early round appeal. 6'5", 245 pounds, 21 catches, 248 yards, and 4 touchdowns 2 years ago in 2024, and then added a career high 261 yards in 2025. But he can showcase and has showcased his explosive after the catch element. He has a good ability to find soft spots in zone coverage, and he's truly a two-way tight end where he could be a serviceable receiving option, but also can be a great two-phase blocking tight end who can operate inline, on the move, as a puller, lead blocker, and I think that's what the Eagles could be looking for in their tight end, especially with this Sean Mannion offense, what it's projected to be. I do think that Delp could be a good fit for the Eagles here again in round 2. Now, he put up a 9.83 relative athletic score. Again, that RAS score out of 100. And that's that scoring system that kind of compares these prospects across different decades of players. So a pretty high score there for Oscar Delp. Again, stats won't pop off the page if you're just looking at numbers. However, I do think he is one of the top tight end prospects after Kenyon Sadiq, who, by the way, where did Sadiq go? Sadiq went 18th to the Minnesota Vikings. So I know there's some mock drafts, and we talked about that. He may fall to the Eagles at 23. In this draft, he did not. He went 18th overall to Minnesota. So that is our first 2-round mock draft. We're going to finish up the draft. They provide grades as well at the end, but we go with offensive line and tight end. We get a B for the Blake Miller pick and a B- for Oscar Delp. So perhaps some better players on the board based on these rankings. These are my personal opinions on these players. Obviously, everybody's different, but I think the Eagles fans would still be pretty happy getting Blake Miller and Oscar Delp in the first 2 rounds based on who was available there here on this 2-round mock. So that will do it for this episode of Eagles Latest. Maybe we'll fire up another one tomorrow and throw in some trades. Maybe we'll make it a 3-round mock. But we go with Blake Miller out of Clemson and Oscar Delp out of Georgia for the tight end position for the first 2 rounds for the Eagles in the 2026 NFL Draft. Let me know your thoughts. What do you think? Would you have gone elsewhere in both rounds? Do you like both picks? Would love to hear your thoughts. And who's on your radar for the Philadelphia Eagles in the first round? Do you think they should trade up? Do you think they should trade back? I would love to hear your comments and concerns and what you think the Eagles should do here as we get closer to the NFL Draft. Thanks so much for tuning in. As always, hit that subscribe button. We're 1 away from that magic number of 300. Would love to get to that and beyond before the draft here in the less than a week, really. So thanks so much for watching. The Eagles got plenty to work on, plenty to decide on, and it'll be a fun few days leading up to the draft. And of course, this weekend, the draft will happen, and we'll have a ton of coverage there as well. Have a great Wednesday, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.